The relationships for the next life have to be settled upon, and this involves telepathic communication with all those who will be involved. This is a time, then, of many projections. There are those who are simply loners, who reincarnate without any great feeling for Earth's historical periods. There are others who like to return when their contemporaries from some particular past historical time return again. And therefore there are group patterns that involve reincarnational cycles in which many, but not all, are involved. There are personal cycles, of course, in which families may reincarnate, taking different relationships to each other, and you have been involved in several of these. There are different depths to be probed in reincarnational existences. Some choose to go all the way. These personalities specialize in physical existence, and their knowledge of this system is most comprehensive. For these there is a movement through each of your racial types, a requirement that is not laid upon most. There is intensive preoccupation with historical periods. Many of these personalities live comparatively short lives, but very intense ones, and they experience more lives than most individuals. They return, in other words, in as many historical times as possible, finally helping to shape the world as you know it. In one way or another, you are all travelers before you began even your first reincarnational cycle. To make it as simple as I can, I will say that you do not have the same backgrounds necessarily when you enter the physical system of reality. As mentioned earlier, earthly existence is a training period, and yet as far as possible I would like you to forget your ordinary ideas of progression. Ideas of good, better, best can lead you astray, for example. You are learning to be as completely as possible. In one way, you are learning to create yourselves. In so doing, during the reincarnational cycle, you are focusing your main abilities in physical life, developing human qualities and characteristics, opening new dimensions of activity. This does not mean that good does not exist, or that in your terms you do not progress, but your concepts of good and progression are extremely distorted. Now, many personalities have extraordinary talents along specific lines, and these may show up again and again in succeeding existences. They may be tempered, used in various combinations, and yet overall still remain a personality's strongest mark of individuality and uniqueness. While most people adopt different trades, occupations, and interests, for example, throughout the reincarnational cycle, with some there will be a very noticeable line of continuity. It may be broken occasionally, but it is always there. They may be priests or teachers, for example, almost exclusively. There will be some more material in this book dwelling specifically upon reincarnation, but here I want to point out that in this time of choosing between lives, many more issues are at stake than a simple matter of proposed rebirth. On occasion, some personalities may be given an exception to the general rule and take a sabbatical from reincarnations, a side trip, so to speak, to another layer of reality, and then return. Such cases are not common, however. Such matters are also decided at this time. Those who choose to leave this system, whose reincarnational cycles are finished, have many more decisions to make. Entering the field of probabilities can be compared to entering the reincarnational cycle. There will be a sustained focus of awareness and existence in an entirely different sort of reality. Powers latent but barely glimpsed within the multidimensional personality are drawn upon and used when such a choice is made. The psychological experience varies considerably from that you know, and yet there are hints of it within your own psyche. Here the personality must learn to group events in an entirely different way, and completely without any reliance upon the time structure as you know it. In this one, as in no other reality, intellectual and intuitive abilities finally work so well together that there is little distinction between them. The self that decides upon reincarnational existence is the same self who chooses experiences within the probable system. The structure of personality, however, within the system is quite different. The personality structures with which you are familiar are but one variety of the many forms of awareness available to you. The probable system, therefore, is as complicated as the reincarnational one. Now, I have told you that all action is simultaneous. Therefore, on the one hand, you exist in both systems at once. However, to explain to you that decisions are involved, and to separate these events, I must simplify them to some degree. Put it this way. A portion of the whole self focuses in reincarnational cycles and handles developments there. Another portion focuses in probabilities and handles developments there. There is also a probable system, of course, in which no reincarnational cycles exist, and a cycle of reincarnations in which no probabilities exist. The openness and flexibility of the personality is highly important. Doorways to existences can be opened, and the personality can refuse to see them. On the other hand, all probable existence is open, and consciousness can make a door where there was none in those terms. There are guides and teachers in this time of choosing and decision to point out alternatives and to explain the nature of existence. All personalities are not at the same level of development. There are therefore advanced teachers and teachers at lower levels. But this is not a time of confusion, but of great illumination, an unbelievable challenge. There will be later material in this book on the God concept that will help you understand some things that remain unsaid in this chapter. Now, for those who choose to recombine, mix or match events from the immediately past life, to try it over in new ways, for example, lessons must also be given. In many of these cases, there is a severe problem and a certain rigidity coupled with the perfectionist characteristics mentioned earlier. The Earth years will be experienced again, but not necessarily in continuity. The events may be used in any way the individual chooses, altered, played back the way that they happened for contrast, the way, perhaps, as an actor would play an old movie in which he appeared over again in order to study it. Only in this case, of course, the actor can change his approach or the ending. He has full freedom with the events within those years. The other actors, however, are thought forms, unless a few contemporaries join in the affair together. Under these conditions, the personality manipulates events consciously, of course, and studies the various effects. The focus demanded is quite intensive. He is told the nature of those who participate with him. He realizes they are thought forms, for example, and his own, but again, thought forms do possess a certain reality and consciousness. They are not cardboard actors for him to simply push around at will. He must therefore take them into consideration, and he has a certain responsibility toward them. They will grow in consciousness and continue their own lines of development on different levels. In one way, we are all thought forms, and this will be further explained in the material dealing with the God concept. Understand, however, that I do not mean that we lack our own initiative for action, individuality, or purpose, and remember also here that you live from the inside out. Then perhaps the statement will